Trump takes multiple questions about Kamala Harris, campaign strategy, and more.
So during your speech, you talked about crime, obviously an issue that's very important to you. You said that there was a crime wave going on at levels we've never seen before.
Yeah.
But according to recent FBI data, they say that violent crime and property crime dropped in 2023 and in 2024. How does that line up with what you're saying in your argument?
Well, I just showed you the papers where it said exactly the opposite, that crime is way up. And as you know, the FBI was fudging numbers, and they've been fudging numbers for a long time. And if you take a look at the real numbers, crime is way up. And now we're talking about migrant crime because people are coming in from all over the world. Criminals are coming into our country because we allowed to have an open border through Kamala Harris, who was the border czar. Or at a minimum, she was in charge, but she was the border czar. That was the name she gave herself, and I guess they gave her. And she essentially never went to the border, went one time to a location that was irrelevant. She never went to the border, and she was a horrible border czar. And millions of people have come into our country, and they think those people are going to be good. They're not going to be good. They're going to be very bad. Many of them are going to be very bad. We have more crime today than we've ever had. And I showed you the chart, and I held it up, that the crime today is much worse than it was just a few years ago.
So I want to actually ask you about the race at the White House. The race has fundamentally changed with Kamala Harris in it. What are you now doing that you weren't doing before to fight the enthusiasm around Harris?
Well, I think it was very unfair to Biden. I'm no fan of Joe Biden. I think he was the worst president in the history of our country. And she goes down as being the worst vice president in the history of our country. She was terrible. 5 weeks ago, you and everybody else were saying she was terrible. Nobody thought she was going to get it. Now that she's got it, the press, as usual, forms behind. It's a pretty unfair situation. But no, if you take a look at what's going on, they had a coup. They staged a coup. They got this man out. They put her there. So I was running right from the beginning, against a guy named Biden. All of a sudden, I'm running against a Marxist named Kamala.
So what are you doing differently then?
I think we're doing the same thing. We're strong on crime. We're strong on our military. We want to have a strong military. We want to have school choice. We want to have a lot of things that I've been talking about for a lot of years and really performed well. Then when COVID came in, we had to solve that problem. We did a great job. They didn't get a lot of credit for that, but we did. They gave me great credit for the economy, great credit for everything. They didn't give me the credit for that, which is okay. But we remember, more people died with COVID under Biden by far than under us.
But do you think you should be changing your strategy, given what we've seen in the polls, given the enthusiasm around Harris? Does something need to change?
Well, according to the polls, I'm leading in the polls, but not by as much. I'm leading, I think, in some polls, like this state. I think in most states I'm leading very substantially. In the overall polls, a couple of them just came out. Fox just came out. I'm leading overall, and I'm leading overall in most. But regardless of that, my whole thing doesn't change. We don't want crime. We want to have a strong military. We got to stop drugs from coming in. We have to stop people from pouring into our country through an open border. We have an open border, and you know this, you've been there many times. We have an open border where millions of people are coming into our country. Millions and millions of people are pouring into our country through a border that's unchecked, unvetted, and they're terrorists, and they're people from jails and prisons, they're people from mental institutions and insane asylums, and hundreds and hundreds of terrorists are coming into our country, unchecked, unvetted, and that's causing a tremendous problem. And remember this, in many cases, they got here relatively recently. They're pouring in. They got here relatively recently. Once they get used to the lay of the land, these are violent people. These are people from the worst prisons in the world, and it's not just South America. They're coming from Africa, from the Middle East. They're coming from all over, and it's a serious problem. She has caused us a tremendous problem. She was the worst border czar in history, probably the history of the world. Millions and millions of people. And I think the number is 20 million or more. Some people say it's 15 or 16. Nobody really knows what the number is. They poured into our country, and these are, in many cases, very dangerous people.
Can I ask you about RFK? Because just moments ago, his running mate said that they were considering endorsing you. Have you considered him for a role in the administration, and what role would that be?
Well, we haven't, but I would love that endorsement because I've always liked him.
Would you also consider putting him in the administration?
You're asking me a very unusual question. I haven't been asked that question yet. I like him a lot. I respect him a lot. I probably would if something like that would happen. He's a very different kind of a guy, a very smart guy. And yeah, I would be honored by that endorsement, certainly. We got a great endorsement from Elon Musk, which I think meant a lot. And, we're leading. We're leading with all of the lies and all of the everything. I watched last night. It was so sad when I looked at the lies talking about Charlottesville. Charlottesville is totally debunked. You know that. But when you talk about
It
all
happened.
no, no, no. Biden said he ran because of Charlottesville. First of all, he doesn't know what Charlottesville is. Guy doesn't know where he is. But he didn't run because of Charlottesville. It's just an excuse. But the whole Charlottesville story was totally debunked. All of the things they said were debunked. The soldiers in France with the grave. I love our soldiers. That was a made-up story by a magazine.
And you saw what John Kelly said in response to your comments about the congressional medal.
John Kelly, I fired him. And John Kelly has an axe to grind, and he made up a story. Nobody would say what he said. I would be the last person to say, he's a liar. He's been a proven liar. He's lied on other occasions. I fired John Kelly. It's interesting. When you fire people and you don't respect people, after I got to know him, I realized he wasn't the right guy. I fired him. See, Biden never fired anybody, ever. Because, why didn't he fire people after Afghanistan, that disaster? He should have fired his whole top military for that, the most embarrassing moment of this country's history. With a John Kelly, I didn't respect him. Once I lost my respect for him because I saw that he couldn't do the job, I fired him. And when you fire people, they tend to say negative things. Who would say a thing like that? Nobody would say a thing like that.
You're saying what he said, you said.
Of course, he made the story up, or he actually didn't. It was made up by a magazine that's a very liberal magazine, and then he was the one person that confirmed it. We have 26 people that dispute that story. But nobody wants to write about that. We have 26.
I have one last question about RFK. So you said that you would consider him for an administration post. Yesterday you said you would consider Elon Musk for an administration post. That would be a very untraditional administration. What would you say to Republicans that might turn off?
Well, I like smart people, and Republicans like me. We had the quickest approval process in the history of the nominating process. We went through it very quickly, and they like me, and I like them, and we want to do a great job. But you're just asking me a question. I didn't know about RFK, but I like him and I respect him. And you're saying, would I think about him for something? And the answer is yes. He's a brilliant guy. He's a very smart guy. I've known him for a long time. I didn't know he was thinking about getting out, but if he is thinking about getting out, certainly I'd be open to it. And with Elon, I would think Elon's pretty busy, but Elon's a super genius, and I like super genius people.
And then just lastly, Sean O'Brien, who's someone you've courted, he's Teamsters, you wanted that endorsement. He recently condemned your remarks with Elon Musk, saying that they were economic terrorism, and he talked about firing striking workers. What is your reaction to that?
Well, I don't know what I condemned. I don't know what I talked about with respect to firing workers. You should be able to, if somebody's doing a good job, they're going to stay, and if somebody's not doing, I don't know. I can tell you this, that Sean is a tremendous leader. They haven't endorsed Republicans in a long time, but I think we're going to win, and I think I am much better for the unions. Let me tell you, the worst thing for the unions is millions and millions of people pouring into our country from parts unknown, from all over the world, parts unknown, and that's going to be the destruction of our black population's jobs, the destruction of our Hispanic jobs, and the destruction of union jobs. So I think Sean sees that, and he sees that as a big threat. That is a real threat to unions, but it's also a threat to black and Hispanic people in this country. The people that are pouring in, totally unchecked, totally unvetted, they're coming in, they're pouring in. The black people are already suffering. They're down 6.2%. Hispanic people are starting. They had the best years in history. The African American population and the Hispanic population had the best years. By the way, women, men, everybody, no diploma from the best schools. Everybody had the best years in history with me, and people want it back, and that's what they see. And we were also safe. Right now we're not safe. We have millions of people pouring into our country, and many of these people are very, very bad and very dangerous.
Anything you want to preview with former President Barack Obama? He's speaking tonight. Last time he spoke at the DNC, he said that you never grew into the job as president. Do you want?
Well, I thought he was a terrible president. He didn't do the job. He also allowed things to happen that shouldn't have happened. He let people take advantage of us on trade, especially trade. He was very weak on trade. I like him. I think he's a nice gentleman, but he was very, very weak on trade. If you take a look at what happened to our country trade-wise, it was a disaster. The Take a look at Japan, take a look at China, take a look at what happened with some of these countries, what they did. But I happen to like him. I respect him and I respect his wife.
Thank you. I think I'm being wrapped. Okay.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
guys. I appreciate it. Great
Nice
to see
seeing you.
Thank you.
See ya.